We talk about the deck squat a lot because when people ask how do you get abs, we always joke that this is the easiest possible way to get abs, is to build up to the point where you can do 100 deck squats without stopping, even with a light to intermediate weight. It's an incredible amount of core work. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about a kettlebell squat. We will be doing a box squat with our feet together into a boat pose. This builds into what is known as a deck squat. I consider deck squats to be the most important squat in the world. Because deck squats go all the way down to the ground and people roll and they stand back up. These are not extreme ranges of movement. These are perfectly natural, normal ranges of movement that absolutely everybody should possess regardless of your age, regardless of what sport you play. Think of this as part of a fall or part of a rolling get up. If you practice any type of wrestling martial art or you jump over objects, you would hit the ground, do a roll, and come up in some way. Think of this as the prep exercise for the second half of that roll. Something important to note here is that we are using an adjustable height. This needs to be firm enough that you can sit all the way down on it, and we like it to be long enough that if you were accidentally to fall backward, that you wouldn't fall off the object. I'm using boxing flooring mats out of an old boxing gym today, and I can take away a mat and get lower, and take away a mat and get lower, and take away a mat and get lower, so that you can learn to squat deeper and deeper down, pick your feet up, activate your core, and then get back to your feet. The lower the box, the harder it is. Eventually, the goal is to be able to do this all the way down on the ground. People use different things to accomplish this idea. There's really no good product solution out there right now other than a stack of expensive mats. Sometimes people use plywood. They'll stack up plywood and they can go down in 1/2-inch increments. Sometimes they will use gymnastics mats. This is a natural human range of movement, and eventually we're going to get rid of all the mats and turn it into a deck squat roll. With this exercise, we are going to start moving our feet all the way together. This is going to help us control our ankles and our knees in greater and greater depths of movement. In this movement, we will get down to the target box and we are going to lean back, lifting our feet up. There are kettlebell versions of this exercise, there are club versions of this exercise, and there are sandbag versions of this exercise, but the kettlebell version is the easiest version to control. There are 2 ways to pick it up. Let's start with the easiest way first. Feet shoulder width apart, thumbs pointed towards the sky, thumbs point forward. Get down, heels flat on the ground. Pick the weight up, globe points towards the sky. The important part here is that our arm is at a 90-degree angle. If our hand is too high, it makes it hard to use our thumb and our index finger to control the bell, which makes us likely to drop weights on our face. Don't drop weights on your face. And we don't want our hands too low. We also don't want the kettlebell to rest on our body and our elbows to be kicked out because we're not using our structure correctly. Elbows in, push the weight off of your body. Bring your feet close together. Get down. Kettlebell will go in front of the knees. Rock back. Feet off the ground. Your core will be forced to engage. Heels flat on the ground. Stand all the way up. Get down. Find the balance point. Rock forward. Stand all the way up. Get down. Rock back. Go forward. Stand all the way up. Heels out, toes out, heels out. Arms perfectly straight. Put the weight all the way down with your heels flat on the ground. The point of this is to point the feet straight ahead. If people do this with their feet shoulder width apart, oftentimes when they go down, they will put their knees together or they will roll their feet in, which is not what we want to do. We want to stack our bones underneath us so that when we go down, our ankle, our knee, and our hip are vertical. Squeezing the toes of our feet all the way together so that we're not turning out in this position. Same thing. It's hard to have your knees together if your feet are turned out. There are sports that do that. this is not those sports. This is a general physical preparedness exercise, which will eventually move us towards a pistol squat or a one-leg squat. So the most important thing here is that our heels are together, then our toes are together, then the kettlebell is off of the body. All the way down. When we stand up, we need to stand all the way up. People who live in the modern world tend to have slightly bent knees and slightly ducked tailbones. This causes people to have low back stress. Their glutes shut off. They're not using their body to its fullest potential. When we stand up, the goal is to straighten our legs all the way out. Pull your kneecaps up to flex your quads. Then tuck your tailbone underneath to squeeze your glutes. If your glutes are loose or you don't have any glutes, you definitely need to work on this. Your glutes are the bottom of your back. If you have strong glutes, you generally don't have back pain. And then drive your rib cage down. When people get more advanced, they will have their feet all the way in position, heels together, toes together, and pick the weight up in that position so that everything is already set. Kettlebell, elbows tight, off the body. Squeeze the glutes as hard as you can at the top of every rep. Get down, rock back, find that balance point. Heels down, the kettlebell will help drag you forward. Stand up, straighten your legs out, squeeze your glutes, rib cage down, shoulders away from the ears, kettlebell off the body. Over time, you can explore getting a little bit further and further back in the boat pose portion. Straighten the arms out to set the weight down. Heels stay flat. Set it down with good technique. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about the spinal rock, a movement you need to know in order to get to the best squat in the world, the kettlebell deck squat. We talk about the deck squat a lot because when people ask how do you get abs, we always joke that this is the easiest possible way to get abs, is to build up to the point where you can do 100 deck squats without stopping. Even with a light to intermediate weight, it's an incredible amount of core work. In order to get to the deck squat, we need to work on the spinal rock. We're going to isolate just the rocking part at the bottom, first without weight, and then in later videos with weight. If you can't do the rock part, if you're slamming into the ground and splatting, you're not getting what you want out of the exercise. In order to make sure people get what they want out of the exercise, we isolate the bottom rocking portion and let people work on that on its own so that they more effectively learn the deck squat. Get down to the ground any way you want, 2 sits bones flat on the ground. Grab your knees, lean back. Make your spine as vertical as possible, lifting your chest up towards the sky, driving your shoulders back and down away from your ears. That is the end position of every rep. To start the movement, collapse the body into a C shape. Make your spine as round as possible. Rock back, sit up, lift the chest up towards the sky. Collapse your spine into the shape of a C, rock, heels touch, lift chest. Collapse the spine, rock, heels touch, lift chest, drive shoulders away from ears. Rock, sit all the way up, lift that chest each time. Breathing wise, exhale back, inhale up. It's a fairly simple exercise, but it's hard for most people to get their whole spine to connect to the ground. What most people will do in the beginning is they will keep part of their spine flat and you'll hear a big whap and the roll will not be smooth. Whap. And then they can't get right back up. The important part here, push and round the body as much as you can to get your whole spine round. Rock back. And then we're going to do the opposite of that. Lift the chest to inhale. Chest open, inhale, exhale, round, inhale, straight. Exhale, round, inhale, straight. Exhale, round, inhale, straight. changing the angle slightly so we can see what the spine is doing. Chest lifted, spine as straight as possible, sit bones down, heels flat, hands on knees, not using your thumbs, making hooks to grab onto your knees, elbows tight to the body. Round the body. Do not slam your skull into the ground. Keep your chin tucked towards your chest. Lift the chest up, spine straight. Round spine. Do not slam head into the ground. Lift up, round spine. Don't slam a head into the ground. Lift up, round spine. Lift up. You will notice that the back of my skull is generally not even touching the mat. The spinal rock is a generally simple exercise, but it is not always easy for everybody. Many people have trouble articulating their spine and not whapping into the ground. Oftentimes, this is included in warm-ups for both kettlebell training, club training, martial arts training, Olympic lifting, for almost every type of sport that there is, because just being able to articulate the spine is something that people need to work on so that they can either improve it or maintain it daily, pretty much for absolutely ever. This little exercise is very important, and we've shoved it into this kettlebell playlist so that everybody realizes how important it is and can work on it on its own before we start building it into more complex athletic activity later on. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about the kettlebell flat back pullover. When we work on the deck squat, like all athletic skills, we can break it down into small pieces and work on each piece individually so that we can ensure that people learn proper technique and we can ensure learning success. We organize our training in such a way that it is impossible for people not to learn. Simple, kettlebell between the knees, heels on the mat, pick the kettlebell up, heavy part on top. Round your spine, get down to the ground without slamming your skull into the ground. Put the kettlebell down behind you. Elbows squeeze tight, rib cage drives down. Abs stay on the entire time. They never give up. When you are done, either set it down behind you, but we would really like people to learn to set it down back out in front of them. We exhale on both sides, when it's behind you and when it's in front of you, because when we exhale, we involuntarily contract our core. We're trying to trick our body into keeping our core engaged the entire time. The weight moves, the core stays on the entire time so that your core can learn to endure. The heavier the weight, the harder it is. This exercise is an isolated breakdown exercise of learning to drive the core down and keep your abs on. This is called breathing behind the shield, but we're taking it from where we do it normally standing up, when we do it with swings, cleans, presses, Turkish get-ups, and we're putting it down to the lying on the ground position. Your head should stay slightly off of the ground the entire time. If you need to, stare at your belly button the entire time. If it's going up and down, you're not holding your core yet. Stare at your belly button and don't let it move. Your arms move, you breathe on both sides, the rib cage stays down. You could think of this like a Pilates exercise, but done like outside in the mud with a giant chunk of iron. This drill is a drill that people will work on for their entire lives. There are 4 basic versions of this drill. This is version 1. Just the pullover, maintaining the core, and then eventually it turns into a no momentum deck squat where we will pull over and stand all the way up. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to work on the kettlebell spinal rock. The spinal rock is a breakdown exercise. We've done a version of this already with no weight because you need to start it with no weight to make sure that people are moving their spine correctly. Then we add weight to the drill. It forces core contraction. Just by holding the kettlebell in the short lever of the kettlebell, it will force people to put their elbows in the right spot and engage their core so that they can add it into different types of squat techniques later. Think of this as mountain Pilates. Use your Turkish get-up technique to get down to the ground. Start where the kettlebell is, step back, put your knee on the ground, hand goes to the line of your knee, sit all the way down and through. That puts you in the correct position to pick up your kettlebell. Adding the kettlebell adds feedback to the system. If you are out of phase at some point of the movement, the kettlebell will let you know. Thumbs point towards the sky, thumbs go down to the bell, pick up your kettlebell, same coaching cues apply. Round the spine, don't drop the weight on your face, sit up, lift your chest towards the sky. Round the spine. The lower back is the hardest for most people to learn to move. Rock back, sit up, lift the chest. Flex the spine, rock, sit up, extend the spine. Flex the spine, rock, sit up, extend the spine. Set the kettlebell down, rest it down on the ground, tip it up, and you're done. This is a very simple exercise, but it is very hard for most people to learn. Most people are not used to flexing and extending their spine, even in this basic range of movement, because the majority of people in the modern world are seated for the majority of the day. Their lower back doesn't work very well. So we start by doing this without weight, as say a time under tension exercise, where you would practice it for a minute in the morning as a warm-up, something that you can check in with every day to make sure your core is firing when you start your day. We put this with weights into programs, like a Turkish get-up breakdown program, or like a rolling program, or a judo falling program. You would start with a light weight, and you would work on quality reps for, say, 30, 60, or 90 seconds. You would try to get faster in the same amount of time without hearing any spinal thumping into the ground. It should be a smooth roll. Work on integrating your breath with the movement. Over time, the weight gets heavier and heavier and heavier, and you have to not drop it on your face more and more and more. Your arms are at that 90-degree angle, not outside, not inside, because when you rock back, you should end up looking at the bottom of the bell. Stare at the bottom of the bell the entire time. You will notice the elbow position for this is the same as it is for heavy club swinging and for mace swinging. This is something we call the order position. Arm at 90 degrees, elbows squeezed tight to the body so that you can squeeze your lats. The lats wrap around to help you fire your core. Your body is an integrated system and it's meant to move. So you need to practice movement with weight.